She demanded I move my boat, the one piece of sanity I'd clung to after years of service, for no reason other than her inflated sense of control. So I did exactly what she asked, just not how she imagined. By the end, her grip on the HOA board was crumbling, all because she couldn't stand the sight of something that reminded her someone else had a life beyond her perfect lawn standards. I'd bought a modest house in a quiet subdivision, close enough to the water for weekend escapes, far enough from the chaos of my military past. My boat, a sturdy 20-foot rigid inflatable, nothing flashy but reliable, sat neatly on its trailer beside my garage, fully compliant with the HOA's rules. I checked the covenants at closing. Boats were allowed on approved side yard pads, if maintained and unobstructive. Mine was spotless, cover on, tires inflated, hull gleaming. For months, life was peaceful. I kept to myself, nodded politely at neighbors, and savored the quiet. Then Margaret took over as HOA president. 3 houses down, her lawn was unnaturally flawless, her golf cart her chariot as she patrolled the streets, clipboard in hand, hunting for infractions only she could see. She radiated the kind of entitled displeasure that thrives on controlling mailbox colors. Our first encounter was predictably sour. One Saturday, she rolled up as I rinsed my boat after a fishing trip. "That thing," she said, voice sharp. "It's an eyesore, isn't it?" I paused, hose in hand. "It's a boat, Margaret. It's functional." She sniffed, eyeing the gray hull. "It doesn't fit our community's aesthetic. We have standards." I pointed out that it met the HOA rules. She muttered about updating them, called it too military, and drove off, scribbling on her clipboard. That word, military, stung. After years of serving, so people like her could fuss over lawn ornaments, her disdain hit deep. A week later, a certified letter arrived, a violation notice claiming my unapproved watercraft violated aesthetic harmony. It demanded removal within 14 days or face $50 daily fines. The cited clause was vague, a catch-all for overzealous boards. I pull my HOA rules. Page 47, Section 8. Boats on approved pads were fine if maintained. My pad was pre-approved, my boat immaculate. Margaret was wrong, wielding a subjective clause like a club. I sent a polite, firm letter with photos of my boat, the rules, and my property plan, sent via certified mail. Silence. Then a second notice, sharper, claiming I'd misinterpreted the rules. Fines were ticking. I talked to neighbors. Tom, a 20-year resident, chuckled. "Margaret fixates on something every season. Last year, it was recycling bins." Lisa, a young mom, whispered, "Your boat's fine. She's got it out for you." Maybe it was me, the boat, or the veteran who didn't bow. Margaret wanted obedience. She wasn't getting it. I dove into the HOA's bylaws, meeting minutes, and Florida's HOA laws. The minutes showed Margaret's rise from secretary to president, exploiting low meeting attendance. The Architectural Review Committee, ARC, required for aesthetic enforcement, hadn't met in months. Margaret was making unilateral calls, a bylaw violation. Florida law demanded fair, consistent rule enforcement. I drove the neighborhood, snapping photos of other boats, RVs, and a commercial van, none cited. Selective enforcement was clear. A third notice threatened a lien. This wasn't just petty, it could harm my property rights. Anger turned to resolve. I consulted a paralegal buddy, who confirmed Margaret's overreach. He advised a formal dispute letter citing laws, bylaws, and my evidence, plus attending HOA meetings to pressure her publicly. I sent a 4-page letter detailing her procedural errors, selective enforcement, and my mediation rights, copying Margaret, Treasurer Ed, and board member Susan. Fines paused. The board emailed that they were reviewing the matter. Victory, but small. Then came Phase 2, malicious compliance. The HOA allowed short-term parking in common areas for 72 hours. One guest lot sat across from Margaret's pristine yard. Every Friday, I moved my boat there, parking it legally in her line of sight. On Sunday, I'd return home. It was petty, legal, and perfect. I felt her glare as I unhitched it, her blinds snapping shut. For a month, this silent protest unfolded, her power undermined by my rule-following defiance. I started attending HOA meetings. My presence rattled Margaret. At my first meeting with just Ed, Susan, and one resident, I asked about ARC minutes exposing their inactivity. Margaret stammered. At the next meeting, more residents attended. When someone raised a commercial van issue, I calmly asked about my boat's review, citing selective enforcement. The room tensed. Margaret's vague, "We follow procedures," fooled no one. Ed looked nervous. Susan studied her nails. I planted doubt. Margaret retaliated with petty notices. Lawn edging, trash cans out too early. I complied, documented everything, and built a harassment case. Tom stopped me one day. Her picking on a veteran doesn't look good. Her actions were alienating others. I met Ed and Susan privately, presenting my evidence, letters, photos, and laws. "This isn't personal," I said. "It's poor governance, risking lawsuits." Susan, whose husband was Navy, softened. Ed worried about legal costs. They didn't commit, but the seed was sown. The annual meeting was the showdown. More residents attended, buzzing about governance. Tom spoke first, demanding fairness, nodding at me. Lisa and others echoed concerns about inconsistent enforcement. I stood, file in hand, and laid out my case. The baseless notice, my compliance, Margaret's procedural failures, her retaliation. I asked the board to rescind the violation and commit to fair governance, I said, eyeing Ed and Susan. Margaret sputtered, but Ed cut in. "He's right. The notice is rescinded. We apologize." Susan nodded. Applause erupted. Margaret was thunderstruck. Another resident suggested discussing leadership, citing bylaws for removal. Margaret paled. Ed tabled it, but her authority was shattered. Neighbors shook my hand. Tom gave a thumbs up. Walking home, I felt vindicated. My boat stayed on its pad, a monument to the fight. Margaret's reign was all but over, her position hanging by a thread. I moved my boat, not to storage, but to checkmate her tyranny. What do you think? Have you faced petty tyrants or unfair rules? Share your thoughts below, especially on standing up to bullying and injustice. Take a stand. Let's hear your voice.